Today on SheKnowsArsenal, I wear black for all the transfers that did not happen. We're having a funeral today, you guys. Let's talk about it. Welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. Let's do this. Hey, you guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JessinoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. We are having a funeral for all the transfers that did not happen. So get your best, your black shirts, your black tie, whatever on, because you guys, it is looking like we may not be signing anybody. Yeah. So we kind of talked about it yesterday. That there is a possibility that we just may not sign anybody, and we have to maybe reconcile with that a little bit. But there has been some news circulating, so we will talk about that. But I have a community poll going on right now that kind of leads into the greater theme of the show, which is, can we reach our goals with the group that we have right now? Without any additions, can we get the business done? Do we believe that this squad is good enough with 17 games left to go to make sure that we qualify for Europe? You know, there's been some interesting stats that I have came across over the last couple of days that I would love to share with you guys. And we're going to kind of focus on that towards the end of the show. But let's just get hype over rumors for the first 30 minutes or so. And you guys just make sure you like that video and subscribe to the channel because it helps. It helps a lot. And I forgot to do that part of my job where I let people know that we're actually here. So for those of you guys who just, showed up without having to be prompted at all, thanks for being here. Where are you guys watching in from? How are you guys feeling? Who do you guys support? I know sometimes it's not just Arsenal fans in the chat. So how are you guys feeling right now about your own club, about Arsenal, all that great and wonderful stuff, while I just go ahead and do the part of the job that I forgot to do. Yep. Transfer windows are always a difficult one for the Arsenal fan base. I think we're just always so ready for things to feel different. And we'll talk about all of that. We will talk about all of that. All right, I've let everybody know that we are here. There's about 50 of you guys already here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's get this funeral started. So let's talk about the first bit of news today that has come across my desk. Is that Arsenal's chances of Artur's loan is diminishing. They want him until the summer. Juventus want an 18-month loan. Edu and Tribuni eventually aligned on the 18 months plus a buy option at 40 million, but Arsenal's hierarchy are reluctant. As things stand, it's not happening. And so essentially what this means is that Edu said, yeah, I'm down for that 18-month loan, and the hierarchy, which it's Josh, it's Stan potentially, and Arteta, have said, actually, and Garlic as well, actually, we're not feeling this shit. And so we have to just kind of let it go. At this point, I feel like if the hierarchy are not feeling good about this deal, we don't actually know what the terms are as well. When you look at loans like this as well, like sometimes you have a compulsory obligation to buy after, like, the option becomes an obligation based on certain things. And so we don't know what the ins and outs of this deal is. And I'm just projecting here. I don't actually know either. But what I do know is that if the hierarchy are not convinced on this player, the deal, the terms, whatever, then I'm not comfortable with it either. Because it just 18 months feels very long for a player that we don't know much about at this point. He could end up being somebody that works out for us, could fill in, could potentially start, but we don't really know. And so, this one is looking like it's not going to get done. And it looked like it was getting done, but maybe they just aren't feeling it. Maybe Arteta doesn't like the player. And so we have to kind of move on. But that was kind of the most concrete like midfield bit of news that we had going was the Artur loan. And now that that is kind of is looked at as something that may not be happening, I don't know where you go from here. But I think an interesting part of this is the hierarchy and who has more power at Arsenal Football Club. Adu is our technical director. Technically, the technical director should be the person running the transfers, and the coach uses the players that he gives them. So, a good example of that would be Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea. He did not want Lukaku, but the board decided to sign Lukaku, and Tuchel is meant to deal with that. And he can say whether or not he really likes the player or not, but if the board says they want him, then they go ahead. And it seems like at Arsenal, it's a little bit of the opposite. And this is where the difference between being a coach and a manager comes in, because it feels like Arteta may have more input than Adu on certain transfers. I think that, and I've always felt this way, that Arteta has the ear of the Kroenkes. And if Arteta says that he's not feeling this, don't push it through, then it doesn't get done. And so Adu doesn't have as much power as we think. And it also makes me think about the jobs for the boys, scenario with Adu. And I have mentioned this before, and you guys know I have a lot of time for Brazilian players. I really do. My favorite player is Ronaldinho. I fell in love with the Brazilian national team, and I tend to follow Brazilian players, and try to watch their games and see how they grow. And I have sympathy for Artur and his situation, and I do think he's a good player that is in a bad situation. But we also have to be cognizant of the fact that Juventus are trying to get rid of this player, and there's a World Cup around the corner. And Adu being so close to the Brazilian national team setup also makes me a little bit reluctant to just go with any Brazilian player that he wants to go with, because it could be a little bit of, this guy needs a helping hand, and we end up being the charity that takes him on. And we're not a charity, we're Arsenal Football Club. So if Arteta doesn't feel like he's good enough, and Arteta, he doesn't have very many midfield options. So if he's not biting your hand off for this dude, or Richard Garlick has, some apprehensions around the terms, then we just have to come to terms with that. And so I look at this as something that, it would have been nice to get a midfielder in, but with even loan options seeming to be difficult to get over the line, we may have to just come to the understanding that El Neni will feel like a brand new signing when he gets back from AFCON. So let's see what you guys are saying. Kevin says, supporting Arsenal right now, your heart must be strong. This club. Brian says, by hierarchy, that sounds like garlic on the financial side. Maybe there's something off that is considered a red flag for the deal, as is currently built. And that's why I said, you kind of have to think about the terms. Do you want to be nailed down to, as Rancid Pumpkin saying, 125 grand a week for 18 months for a player that maybe the manager isn't sold on? Maybe there's a compulsory clause where if he plays a certain amount of games, it becomes an obligation to buy, and 40 million is an amount that we should be using for our top target in the summer. So it looks like this could be something that I could look at and say, if it doesn't look right, then don't do it, because we don't want to nail ourselves down to something that's going to prohibit us from making moves in the future that are going to be very important for the progress of the club. But it still leaves me in a spot where I feel like, damn, I feel like we need a midfielder. But we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. I do have the Douglas Luiz news, you guys. We will be chatting about that. and Ruben Neves too. So just give me a second to get to that. I want to talk about our tour a little bit more. Rich something says, you're sounding a bit happier today, Jess. Glad to hear it. If Adu doesn't think a Brazilian player is worth the deal, I'm happy to trust him. But what the report says though, Rich something, is that Adu actually was for the deal going through. So it actually isn't Adu that is reluctant around our tour. It's the hierarchy. And as I believe the hierarchy to be is Josh/Stan, Richard Garlick, and Arteta. So one, if not all, if not some of those people didn't think the deal was right. And so it actually wasn't Adu, but I hear your point that if they don't think that it's the right deal to do, then fair enough. It's just, I can understand why people are frustrated because, as we will get to, the midfield feels like somewhat of an opportunity to improve upon that we are a little bit kind of reluctant to maybe do so until the summer. And that reluctancy might end up hurting us in the end. We just don't know. Alistair Jones says, can we wait for the summer, though? Arteta's job is resting on getting Europe back. We'll be having that conversation. Alejandro says, definitely think there are other options, even on loan. Zachariah, for instance, even if Bayern get him, we can go and see if we can get Roca on loan from Bayern. There are potentially other options, but what we've known is that in this window so far, what we've heard of for options have been Gini Wijnaldum on loan and Artur on loan. And I don't know if that's based on what Adu is able to, what kind of what kind of resources does he have in order to the value of a DOF for me is their experience and their connections and their network. Like, that is what the value of a DOF is for me. And so if Adu's experience, connections, and circle, is limited to Kia clients and older dudes that you can get on a loan, and he's unable to really unlock those hidden gems or those opportunities in the market that allow us to kind of outsmart the market, and get things done. There are players that are on a free, like Zachariah, that you could probably get on a cheap. Boubacar Kamara is another one that is would be a free signing, but you can sign him for 10 million. So there are other options other than just a loan for a player that's on over 100 grand a week. But it seems like those are the only options that Adu could bring us. And that's something that you have to look at, is if your DOF doesn't have the type of connections and the experience that allow you to outsmart the market, then you probably don't have the right DOF. Also, negotiating skills, ability to get deals over the line, selling, all those types of things are important. And that is kind of where, a little bit of maybe a review on Adu will come into play at the end of the season. Let's see. Hamsick is mad. Less than 5 days remaining and we've signed no one. Yeah, for real. Tony says, just got here. What are we talking about? We are closing the conversation on our tour. We're doing it. All right. So there's about 151 of you guys here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. The Truth Sets Free sent in a super chat. Thank you so much. He says, Chambo Whale equals legend. Nice to see you. Shamuel? What does that mean? Equals legend. Nice to see you. Nice to see you as well. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. So let's talk about the next thing on the agenda, which it's like, I don't know what I'm doing for my own show, you guys. Literally, it's like it just went out of my head. So let's add this back. There we go. All right, so we can talk about Saliba next. So another report that came out today is that, contrary to reports in France suggesting that he is open to a permanent switch to Marseille in the summer, William Saliba wants to return to Arsenal at the end of the season. And this is coming from Chris Wheatley of Football London. And so this is somebody that's close to the club. That's kind of how I look at Chris Wheatley. He feels like somebody that's close to the club and has information, or how do I say this in the right way? He speaks for the club, but is not a representative, if that makes sense. So I feel like this is something that is weighing heavy on the Arsenal fan base, is whether or not Saliba is going to come back and actually get a chance. And similar reports came out like this towards the back end of last season that said Arsenal were not interested in selling William Saliba and he would come back and get a chance. And lo and behold, he did not get a chance. So seeing this does give you a little bit of like a warm, fuzzy feeling, a little bit of a cozy blanket, keeping you warm at night. Like, okay, Saliba can come back. And you guys, for me, honestly, I think that this is, if there is any friction between William Saliba and Arteta, this is the one that he needs to smooth over, because quite frankly, I don't want to spend another transfer window talking about center backs. You know, I think it's pretty obvious that if Pablo Mari doesn't get playing time, he doesn't want to be here. You know, so he's you know, somebody that doesn't look like he's going to be a part of the long-term future of the club. Chambers is going to be leaving on a free this summer. And right now you're basically looking at Ben White and Gabriel and Holding. And that is not enough. If we were to make it into Europe, that's not enough, you know, to sustain any sort of legitimate challenge. And the next step for the club for me is for players like Saliba to come in and put pressure on Gabriel and White for their position, because I personally feel like there's just a lot of this is the starter and this is the backup, and there's such a big drop off between the two that we just don't get that competition for places that we should be getting. And so for me, I would like Saliba to be somebody that could push the other two and make us better. And Saliba has done phenomenally since being at Marseille. He has come leaps and bounds. And from Saint Etienne to Nice to Marseille, you have seen his progress. And he's one of the best young center backs in Europe. And it would be an absolute shame for Arsenal to lose him over some little petty shit. So we see this all the time, and mostly I see it at other clubs where I feel like players on the outs and the manager is able to smooth it over and things just roll over. And I feel like this is the one. If there was one that I will not be able to accept, us not trying to at least smooth it over, is William Saliba. I don't care about Guendouzi. I don't give a shit about Torreira. I don't care about those players. This is one that I just feel like we need to get right, because this Saliba is going to be a star, and he was heavily scouted by Arsenal. He's somebody that's highly regarded by so many people, and we would never live it down. We would never live it down. You have a young, potentially world-class center back in your ranks, and you can't smooth it over because he was upset when he first came to Arsenal that he didn't get the playing time that he thought he should get. Bring him in the summer, make him feel important, and put pressure on Gabriel and Ben White, because those boys, they need pressure on their position. And we've already spent the 27 million on him, and we know how much quality center backs cost. They are not cheap. And don't get it twisted. If we have to go into the market to get another center back, we will either have to take money from another position that we were looking to strengthen, potentially maybe right back, which is a position that a lot of Arsenal fans want to see more options in. Or you bring in somebody like another Pablo Mari, and they just don't give you the squad quality that Arsenal need to move forward. So Saliba is somebody that has got to come back in. And this is good news, but we've kind of heard this. Last summer we heard something a little bit different. He was unhappy from what we understand, but we weren't willing to sell him and he would come back in. This feels a little bit different. Like he does want to come back. And there were reports yesterday coming out of France. Newsflash, the French media does not like Arsenal, and they will pile on whenever they can. but this is a credible report from somebody who knows something about Arsenal, saying that William Saliba wants to return. And I think that if we could smooth this over, if there's something to smooth over, this feels like a new signing to me. And I think we need him. Let's see. Silly Billy Killy says Bayern want to sign Mavropanos from Stuttgart for 21 million. Do they really? Rancid Pumpkin says, Saliba will be great for rotation. He can play center back and right back. That's very true. S says Saliba has captained the French under 21s this season. He fits in perfectly with what we're trying to do. And it would just be a shame because I don't think this is a matter of bad recruitment. I think it was we spent a lot on a young player that wasn't ready, and he felt like he was ready. And something interesting that he said not too long ago was that it was a really good experience for him to feel going to Arsenal from Saint Etienne and feeling like a nobody, like nobody gave a shit about who he was, and how he had to kind of cope with that. The feeling of you ain't shit, when you come to Arsenal for the first time, and it pushed him to try to show that he has what it takes. And we got to integrate him back in because he's done the work. He showed that he could do it. And it's time for us to bring him back into the fold. Colin says Saliba is a beast. I would say he puts pressure on Ben White, which is good. There's a difference of opinion there amongst the Arsenal fan base on whether he would be replacing Gabriel or White. I think it's a little bit too early to say, but I think because he can play left-sided center back, he can play right-sided center back, and he can play right back, he is somebody that we could use because he is so much better than Pablo Marie, than Holding, than Chambers. And if you want to make a push for anything significant next season, you have to have quality depth. And he would add that for us. Let's see. S says Saliba's going to take Gabriel's place. Chambu. Okay, so that's who. Okay, so you were talking to True Sets Free. Says better than what Arsenal have at the moment. Haha. Truth. Belotti. Sure, better than Nketiah. Sure, maybe. Dave says we need quality manager, not a fraud now. Ooh, shots fired. Colin says Arsenal's veteran said we are in a transition period, meaning that it's going to be painful. They said we need 5 more transfer windows, 2 down, more to go. Who are these people that said that? Who said that? Who said that? Oh, yeah. So We Move says, was the transfer ban against Marseille true? I mean, from my understanding, it's true, but we don't know whether it'll stand or not. But at the same time, it doesn't matter for us really, because if we want to bring him in, want to bring him back in, then if they want to buy him, it doesn't matter because we don't have to sell him. Let's see. Johnny Boy says, don't worry, Eddie will score all the goals we need. Okay, so now you guys are talking about Eddie and Nketiah. Okay, so yeah, there you go. True Gunners TV says, thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. Says, big up, Jess. Do you think Arteta should just swallow his pride and bring Aubameyang back into the fold if we don't get a replacement and Abba stays? Well, that's something we can go ahead and move on to now since we've talked about Saliba, because I did have some news about Aubameyang. There's about 300 of you guys watching. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let me just go ahead and read this out to you guys now. So this is coming from James Benj, and basically what he said is that Al Nassr has submitted a loan offer, and we already kind of know that Aubameyang is not convinced on that move for personal reasons and footballing reasons. There are European clubs that are interested in him, but we know the wages are going to be an issue, and that's always going to be the issue with somebody like Aubameyang because his wages are so astronomical that I never felt like anybody would take him on beyond him running his deal down. And so they kind of talked about it's an issue, about it's been a dramatic year for Aubameyang, and we all kind of know that beyond him just falling off, in terms of his playing. His mom has really suffered with illness, and he's contracted COVID twice and has had malaria. So it's been a tough year for Aubameyang. So we have to take that into account. Maybe he doesn't want to leave Europe right now when things are so unsettled in his own life. And so basically what Al Nassr has to do is convince him that, that league is suitable for him, that there are enough players of his quality there to make it worthwhile. And then obviously that they could pay what it would take to get him there. And so they're still pushing, but Aubameyang is not really that interested in the move right now, or he's not expected to say yes. And Aubameyang is also not expected to be a part of the squad that is going to Dubai. And it's funny because Wilshire's going, but Aubameyang's not going. And that just kind of shows you how far down he really is in the pecking order, and how deep this situation really is, we don't really have a strike force right now. We don't really have, the firepower up front. Lacazette's kind of fallen off, and Aubameyang is still not in the squad, so that speaks to itself, but in regard to your question, I guess I want to open it up to you guys as well, because it's looking like the striker situation was Vlahovic or nothing. And the other options that we were looking at, the Dominic Calvert-Lewins, the Isak, they will not happen for one reason or another. So do I think that Arteta should just swallow his pride and bring Aubameyang back into the fold if we don't get the replacement? He may have to, but I have to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to happen. And what I think is that I'm not really that convinced that Aubameyang can help us at this point, because if he's not happy, he's no good to us. Aubameyang is a good time Charlie. And if things are not going his way, if he's not happy, if he doesn't want to be somewhere, we lose him, so I can't get out of my mind the Aubameyang that was missing sitters and, pretty much working against us during that period before he was omitted from the squad. And he wasn't omitted from the squad because he was playing poorly. It was also compounded by the fact that he wasn't acting like a captain. And so all of those reasons kind of lead me to feel like, do I actually think that Aubameyang would be that better of an option? And we're down on Lacazette right now, because the last thing that we remember from Lacazette is him missing a point-blank opportunity to get us 3 points that would take us into the top 4. But before Aubameyang, was omitted from the squad, the last thing that I saw from him was him missing a sitter at Everton. So they're both not really firing. And Aubameyang has more goals than Lacazette, but we've also at our best period of the season without Aubameyang. Since Aubameyang has been outside the squad, we've scored like 20 goals, and we can't undermine what Lacazette does for the squad, but he doesn't give us the goals. So I don't think that Aubameyang will make that much of a difference, if I'm perfectly honest, because we lose something with him in the squad that we get with Lacazette, but neither of them are really the answer. Somebody that I do think that might be important to kind of try to bring back into the fold in the next couple of weeks is Nicola Pepe. That's somebody that I think that could be of good use to us towards the back end of the season, because Saka is going to need a rest. Pepe can play multiple positions, either on the left or on the right. And he's somebody that I feel like has a little bit of more of a chance to give us something at the back end of the season. Whereas I feel like Aubameyang, it feels like both parties are okay to separate. And for me, if Aubameyang is not wanting to be there, he's basically not really an option for you as far as I'm concerned. And that's coming from somebody that follows Dortmund pretty heavily. And I know what it's like when Aubameyang is not really feeling the situation. And so I don't really think that bringing him back into the fold would help that much. But what I will say is that if Arteta did bring him back in, I'd be okay with that as well. It's one of those where I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I think we're at a point in our progression where we need a whole new set of strikers. We need 2 strikers to come in and I think we're going to suffer with the goal scoring situation for the rest of the season. I hope that answers your question. And you guys can let me know what you feel. Do you guys think that Aubameyang should be integrated back in? You know, we have some players that are coming back in. You could bring Aubameyang back in. You could nurture Pepe a little bit more. He's coming back from the African Cup of Nations soon. The Ivory Coast was just knocked out by Egypt. So, and he had a decent, a showing there. And it would be good for Arteta to piggyback off of that and try to get him into some sort of form, because Saka needs rest. He's not going to get rest during this international or this break, so it's one of those where he might need to look at some of these players and see what he can do. But when it comes to Aubameyang, I think more about his attitude. And we thought we had gotten over this with him and that he was happy and ready to go, and it doesn't seem like that was really the case, to be honest. True Gunners TV says, I would rather Aubameyang coming off the bench than Nketiah, though. I also think that if the chances fell to Laka the other day, fell to Aubameyang, at least one is in the back of the net. And that's fair enough. I think that, Aubameyang coming off the bench might be better than Nketiah. For some, I think it's all this pretty much the same. They could score a goal. They're all kind of out of form at the same time. So I can't really see. The only thing I can say is that Aubameyang is more of an accomplished goal scorer. So you may be able to get something out of him if you can just get him going. But yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like they're all kind of not the answer. But yeah, I guess if I'm looking at it and it's at the end of the game and, let's say Lacazette does start, but you have like Pepe and Aubameyang on the bench to be able to bring off the bench to make something happen, that would probably feel better than, Nketiah and nobody else. So I hear what you're saying. There's 300 of you guys in here. You guys better be liking this video. That's all I know. Ryan says, why was Pepe ever frozen out? Arteta is way out of his depth. Was Pepe actually frozen out, though, or was Saka playing so well that he couldn't be dropped? I think that's an interesting question, was Pepe actually frozen out? I think when I'm saying that Pepe should be brought back in, I'm saying that, and this was something that I got a lot of pushback on just yesterday, was that what Arteta, I feel like, needs to work on is keeping the fringe players engaged and not making it seem like they're out. Because right now we have our starting 11 plus ESR, and those are kind of his guys, ESR and Holding. And everybody beyond that kind of feels a little bit like they're on the outs. And it almost makes them like it feels like they don't contribute as much as they possibly could. So what Arteta needs to do is I'm not saying, because I don't know anything, I don't have my badges, but what I would like is when we're going through these games, we're going to be playing Wolves, Brentford, and Watford. These are 3 games that we should probably be winning. And you could, against Watford, put a Pepe in instead of Saka. You could, against Brentford, play Sambi instead of Thomas Partey with Xhaka. You could keep people engaged so that when you actually have to use them, they haven't not played in so long and have no confidence. And I just feel like everybody that's on the bench feels like they don't have the confidence to make something happen, and that doesn't work for us. And so Pepe coming back from the African Cup of Nations, you guys know how I feel about Pepe. He's not my favorite player, but he's scoring goals at that tournament. He clearly has some confidence. Why not play him? Why not play him against Brentford and give him the whole game? You don't think that he can play against Brentford? Let's just try it. And then when you actually need him, when Saka gets injured or he just can't go or he's just not having a good game, Pepe can come off the bench and make something happen. That's my point. He needs to manage the gray areas of the squad a little bit better. McCall says, do you think we should go and hijack Newcastle's move for Bruno, as I personally think and hope we should? I would love for us to do it, but, the midfield is just, I'm going to put a star next to this question because this is kind of how I feel, you guys, just to touch on it really quick. I don't think there was ever intention of bringing in a top midfielder in this window. We weren't prepared to do so. We were only prepared to go after Vlahovic if the opportunity came about. And so my like kind of understanding of the situation, how I think about it is that in the summer we had an opportunity to upgrade the midfield. We had $150 million to play with, or 150 million pounds or whatever to play with. And we all were screaming for the midfield to be the position that we really go after. And the club decided to not do it and to stick with Granit Xhaka. And we have Granit Xhaka, El Neni, and Thomas Partey and Sambi to start the season. And that's what they were willing to go with. They thought that with the 2 cups and the Premier League, this is good enough to go through, the season. And it hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out. Thomas Partey has had his injury issues. Xhaka has had his injury issues. And as of late, they've both been stupid and have been unavailable through suspension. And when you look at El Neni was always going away to AFCON and was always going to be the one that took the longest to come back. But not only that, he's just not up to the level. And Sambi, as good of a young player as he is, and as much as I believe that he's going to have a good future, he's not ready to run the midfield for Arsenal Football Club right now. So we went with that, and that's what we were prepared to do. And so we got to a period of the season, which was in January, where everything pretty much fell apart because we didn't have the midfield. The midfield was not available to us that we had put together. But now past that, we're out of all of the cups. We have 17 matches left. And I feel like the club is maybe well, what are the chances of those players not being available to us? Maybe we can just make it to the end of the season. I don't think there was ever an idea that we would bring in a top midfielder in this window or the last window if Granit Xhaka was not gone. And so until that man leaves the club, that is who we're going to see in our midfield. That is who they're pinning their hopes and dreams on right now. Let's see. S says Pepe at his best. FA Cup final is our best winger in my opinion. The problem is he's so inconsistent. It's true, he is very inconsistent. But he was really good in the FA Cup in general, and that's when he had all the confidence. And we need to find that. It needs to be found again. True Gunner says, I would say yes, Pepe was frozen out because even when Saka was being subbed off on 70 minutes, which is not often, by the way, Pepe was never the first choice to come on and replace him. True. That is true. Nketiah was. Rancid Pumpkin says, Pepe played very good at AFCON. This is something that we need to use to our advantage. This is somebody that scores goals. And we're looking at a Lacazette that looks like he may be on the edge of falling off of the cliff. And Nketiah, that's not really engaged in what we're doing at Arsenal and is not really good enough or ready to lead the line for Arsenal. And potentially Aubameyang frozen out. So if you're going to freeze out Aubameyang, you need to use Pepe. We don't have enough good players and enough senior experienced players to just be okay with Pepe rotting away on the bench. We have to use him. Lionide says Pepe has better end product, nutmegs and cutbacks. Yeah, I think that's something that he needs to look at. Yo-Yo says Pepe is anti-Arteta ball. Yeah, I mean, Pepe is somebody that doesn't really fit the mold. But at the same time, when you don't have Man City-like resources, you have to learn how to use the gray areas of the squad and use them to the best of your ability. And as much as I don't think Pepe is going to last at Arsenal, I don't think he's so useless where we can't make it work. He's not that bad, and you don't have the luxury of not using him. You just don't. You don't have the luxury of not trying to make that work. He's coming off of a good moment. So why not try to engage in that and bring him in and give him some minutes? If you bring him back in and then you don't play him, you've let that go to waste. Blaze says, Jess, Arteta doesn't trust Pepe because he doesn't fit into the system that Arteta wants to play. Last season, Arteta bought Willian, and then Willian played bad and Pepe played more. He has to get over it. Like, the reality is that the squad is not deep enough or good enough for us to be looking at certain players and saying, you know what, because you dribble too much, I'm not going to use you at all. He has some skills that other players in our team just doesn't have. And when he gets into the box and he gets into those positions, he scores the goal. And so Pepe is just somebody that, as much as you guys know, I'm not a big Pepe fan, but we don't have a lot to really work with. So we just have to kind of get over it, you know? So yeah, I mean, we just have to try, you know? Mr. Austin says, Jess, I know you must be hurt. I know it must hurt for you to have to rely on Pepe again. I mean, yeah, you guys know I don't love him, but I'm fair. I'm realistic enough to know that this squad is not deep enough for us to be looking at Pepe like, oh, we don't need you, you know, because Saka is on his last leg and Pepe can score goals. So there's some players that I'm like, absolutely not, without any, I don't want to see them at all. But Pepe is one that if you can engage his confidence, if you can unlock that, you could get something. You could get something from that. There's 330 of you guys watching. Make sure that you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. I want to talk about Douglas Luiz now. So this is what I got from Birmingham Live about Douglas Luiz, and I'll give you my thoughts on it after I kind of give you guys the information. So Steven Gerrard has kind of revealed that Aston Villa are yet to open new contract talks with Douglas Luiz. So remember, when players are wanting new deals and new contracts, what they'll do is try to concoct links to other clubs to try to get their club to hurry up. Keep that in mind. So the Brazilian's current deal expires in 17 months. And they've already kind of renewed quite a bit of their players, but they are stalling on Douglas Luiz. And we all know that they are interested in Bentancur from Juventus, and they're also interested in Basuma. Keep that in mind. Gerrard wants the midfielder to step up another few gears from now until the end of the season. He said, no, we haven't opened up contract talks yet with Douglas. I think in this period, in this window, it has been the case of trying to strengthen the current squad, make additions, and also find destinations for some of our younger players in terms of loans. Dougie has done okay for us. We've been happy with his training level and the performances that he has given. We will think that there's room for him to get better and improve. You know, he has had a bit of an injury when he first arrived, and we still think that there's another gear or two for Dougie to go into. He is doing us a good job at number 6 at the moment. We know that he maybe prefers a little bit more advanced, but he's helped us an awful lot off the back of Nakamba's injury. So when you say like somebody has helped them out an awful lot on the back of Nakamba's injury, who I don't think Nakamba, I think it's Marvelous Nakamba. Excuse me, if that's the player that he's talking about, basically he's speaking about him as if he's the backup and Nakamba is the starter that got injured. We rate the player extremely high, but we are hoping from now until the end of the season he can really perform at his best and help the team moving forward. Villa's Premier League rivals, wow, Arsenal, have long been admirers of Douglas Luiz, with the Gunners tabling their interest back at the summer alongside Italian giants Roma. So it's kind of also an easy link to make because, you know, Douglas Luiz was at Manchester City when Arteta was there. So they're saying that there's a connection there, and as well as Adu being Brazilian and all of that. So we know that these are kind of easy links to make as well. But as I already said, Bentancur is somebody that that they really want, Villa really want, and they're stalling on Douglas Luiz at the moment. And that is one that you guys know. Again, I am very partial to Brazilian players, and I'm always kind of sitting there like, oh my gosh, let's give them a chance. But damn, like, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, so basically they're going to juice up their squad with Bentancur and probably Basuma, because we know that they're very interested in him, and we're going to take their dead wood. This is somebody that they are speaking about as if they are below Nakamba in the pecking order of their squad. Aston Villa is not our rivals. They're a team that is below us. And I just feel like if we're going to take one of their players, we need to take one of their best ones. And they're not speaking about Douglas Luiz as if they're one of their best ones. Did some digging around to see what Aston Villa fans were saying, and they do think of him as dead wood because they feel like they're in a position to juice up their squad and bring in somebody like Basuma, Basuma is somebody that you guys, again, not thinking about his personal issues, is the player that we should be probably looking at. So why would we take their dead wood and open up space in their squad so that they could bring in some better players? I just don't see that as making sense. And so as much as I like Douglas Luiz and as much as I think that we need a number 6, and I also think there is a push, maybe not from Adu, but from Arteta for Premier League like proven players. I just feel like, can't we just get Basuma instead? I don't understand. I mean, I could just hear it now. Oh, Arsenal took Douglas Luiz and Aston Villa went to go get Basuma. How does that happen? I just don't know how I feel about it. Now, I do think that Douglas Luiz is a good player and would add that El Neni replacement that we desperately need. I think that we need a traditional, like a nailed on number 6, and we also need a number 8, somebody that's going to give us a little bit more in attack, somebody that can play with Odegaard and play with the number 6 and kind of give us a little bit of that two-way ability. Douglas Luiz would be the latter. No, he would be more of the former. He would be more of that traditional number 6. And I do kind of feel like, okay, well, in the summer, what do you want to spend more money on? Do you want to spend more money on the guy that's going to contribute to the attack or the one that's going to be hanging about a little bit more in your midfield? You'd probably say, okay, I'd rather spend more money on the 8 than the 6. But I just feel like they're about to give us Douglas Luiz and go turn up and get Basuma. And personally, that would hurt my soul. Like, it just would. You can't have Newcastle taking my Bruno Guimaraes and then, Aston Villa ending up with Basuma. Like, it's mad. But Douglas Luiz would be a good player to bring in on a very like cheap deal, like no more than 20 million, to be honest. Like, there's just no way we should spend a lot of money on him, because if you're going to spend more than 25 million, you might as well get Basuma, But what do you guys think about Douglas Luiz? And there are like reports that we will like increase push. But again, remember what I said at the beginning of that whole spiel, that he's looking for a new contract. They haven't opened up talks with him. So this could be a little bit of, hey, are you going to give me a contract or not? Mr. Austin says Aston Villas are our rivals. Ha ha. Johnny Boy says our players playing elsewhere are playing better than our players here. You couldn't write this stuff. G. Wills saying at this rate, Arteta will both ruin Pepe and Saka. One is overplayed and one is not played at all. But you guys are mad. True Gunner says, I like Douglas Luiz. Would be a good signing in my opinion. Would be well suited next to Partey, but more defensive minded and would allow Partey the freedom to go forward. Yeah, he would. And that's the position that a lot of us have been calling for a minute. I just have this weird feeling that I'm like, but couldn't we just get Basuma instead? And, but Douglas Luiz is somebody that he would give us what we need in that position and an option, an option, if you need to close out a match and you're playing with, I don't know, you're playing with a midfield 3 or something like that. If you need to close out a match and bring out a defensive central midfielder, that's the kind of person that you want to bring in. And he's still very young, 23, 24 years old, has a career in front of him, a Premier League proven, and kind of fits the mold of what we're trying to do at Arsenal. We see that we like the Premier League proven group. And so let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with that one. Let's see. Tony says Basuma or Rice. I mean, I guess if I had to choose one of them, I would choose the one that's probably the better and has the higher ceiling, which is Rice. But because I don't think we'll be in the market for him, because we won't be in the top 4 potentially. Basuma is somebody that I would look at. You guys know? Yo-Yo says stop replacing backup players, make 34 the backup. Damn. Is there any guarantee that Xhaka wants to do that? I mean, we know that he views himself as this alpha dude. Do you even want him around at all? Does he even want to be around at all if he's not the starter? So I'm assuming that he doesn't want to be at Arsenal if he doesn't start. And it feels like it's either sell Xhaka or he's the starter. So making him the backup, yeah, that's ideally how I would like things to go, is we just buy better players and the players that we have now become backups or have to actually compete for their spots. But Granit Xhaka is a very specific player that I feel like I'm the starter, I'm not here. And I'm projecting and I'm assuming. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind if he became the backup, but if that were the case, then why not just buy the midfielder in the summer or buy them now and make him the backup now? Why not? It's not like we don't have the money. So yeah. True Says Free says Osimhen and Bruno. True Gunner TV says Basuma, Neves, or Souček would be my first choice options, though. Yeah, so let's talk about Ruben Neves. So he's been trending. I think a lot of that is just because every single midfielder striker that we are linked with, we blow up the Twitter sphere and continue to talk about them. And it was in The Athletic where they said that our long-term targets for central midfield are Douglas Luiz, Tyler Adams, here, Ruben Neves, Tielemans, and Bruno Guimaraes. So Bruno is gone, and Ruben Neves, we were heavily linked with him last summer, and maybe it had some legs to it. You know, maybe it was just because we couldn't sell Xhaka that we couldn't bring him in. And so now people want us to go out and get Ruben Neves. Do I think that this can get done in January? Absolutely not. Wolves are 2 points behind us and playing us the first game that we come back. They are not going to sell us their best player, and we're not going to put up the money required to get them to even think about it. So this is something that we'll probably look at in the summer. And Ruben Neves is somebody that, like S is saying, does bore me. There's just certain players that just don't, that for me, he's just not my type of player. I watch him and I just think, damn, people really like him. He's kind of like not my thing, but people they like him because, you know, he runs the midfield by himself and he takes those long range shots and he wears a captain's armband and he's Portuguese and he does these like really interesting long balls and he has like range in his passing. But he's just not my type of dude. Like he just isn't, you know. But ultimately, I don't know about you, but do you guys get the idea that maybe Arteta is looking for more of like a midfield? He wants that Xhaka profile in there no matter what, because we could, you know, go for like just the traditional CDM, but it feels like the links with Bruno Guimaraes and Neves and Tielemans make me feel like we're looking for somebody with the passing range and more Xhaka-esque in the way that they play that position. And that's an interesting one. But I think when we spend for the top midfielder, it'll end up being somebody with the passing range and the vision and a little bit more of a deep line playmaker than an actual like destroyer type CDM. And if we do get a CDM that is a destroyer, it will be the cheaper one that we bring in, which might be why we're looking at Douglas Luiz and not Basuma for that position. Because if you're going to spend like 50 million on Basuma, that's going to wipe out your whole midfield, like, you know, budget, you know. So I think when you're looking at it, if it's up to maybe Arteta, it's I get my Ruben Neves, but I get my Douglas Luiz to make sure that I have an actual number 6 to replace El Neni. But what I really want to spend my money on is somebody with the passing. And both Bruno Guimaraes and Neves and Tielemans, that's what they're good at. They are good in that left half space and that left central midfield space, and they have the vision and the ability to dictate from deep, but also do some shorter passing. And, maybe that's what we're looking at. Let's see. Gary says he wants an unexciting, non-tackling midfielder who is fair at passing. He wants Arteta 2.0. That's harsh. I wouldn't say that Neves is fair at passing. I think passing is his thing. What I would say is that I think he's looking for somebody that's more of a deep line playmaker that can switch the ball and has that passing range. A Xhaka, like just another Xhaka, but a little bit better, something like that. I think that's what we're looking for. So, yeah. Yep, there's that as well, so I don't think Neves is something that gets done in this window, though, because Wolves are not stupid. They're not going to, let's sell him to Arsenal. Unless we're willing to put like 60 on it, then maybe they'll look at it. There's about 340 of you guys here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's see. Nashville says, I think we are waiting to see if we get Champions League to see what midfielder we get this summer. However, that might be counterproductive. And I think that I get that. Like, let's see what our options are in the summer where we are. And yeah, depending on where we finish, our options may be a little bit different. But I think I have to be honest. So when I look at the midfield options, like what's actually better than Ruben Neves, like in our price range? Like, let's think about this for a second. So what's the next level up from Bruno Guimaraes, Ruben Neves, and Tielemans? What's the next level from that? The next level from that is Frankie de Jong, Declan Rice. That's the next level. And I'm not sure 1 year of Champions League qualification even really enters us into the conversation for some of these midfielders, because their next question is going to be, well, what are you going to do to stay here? How do I know that you're actually going to stay here? And so, I think personally for me, everybody that's on this, so Basuma, Calvin Phillips, Ruben Neves, Bruno Guimaraes, Tielemans, all these guys, Madison, they're all in the same level for me. Players that are attainable for us, that will cost us about 40 to 50 million, that definitely improve us, but are considered probably good top players, but not elite, not Declan Rice and not Frankie de Jong. Those two players are going to expect to go to top teams. And so is there really going to be a huge difference between what we can attract with Europa/Champions League? I'm not really buying it, because you have to also show the intent to stay there. And I'm not sure that I believe that we'll do that. Mark says, Jess, if we failed to sign anyone in January, would you bring back from loan, if anyone? If I had to bring somebody back from loan, it would be one of the 15 midfielders that we have there. I mean, I would bring back Torreira, Guendouzi, or Ainsley Maitland-Niles, because that's what we need. We need midfielders. It is what it is. We all know what we need, but I don't think any of that is really feasible, is it? Let me see. I missed a super chat. True Gunners TV says, scenario, it's transfer deadline. Arsenal failed to buy a midfielder. Arteta's new 2-year deal is announced, and the role is changed to player manager. Oh my goodness, that would be terrible. Oh my gosh. But at this point, I mean, he might need to play in midfield at some point. So this is kind of what I wanted to come up to. And I know you guys are all in the chat. Like, I'm trying to get to as many comments as possible, but this is really what I wanted to get to was the community poll here. So I'm looking at the community poll, and I asked you guys, can Arsenal qualify for Europe with the current squad? No additions. 41 of you guys said yes, and 59 of you guys said 59% said no. So it looks like we're all kind of thinking that if there are no additions, we will struggle. And you might be asking, like, well, what are our ambitions? What are our goals? What are we trying to get to? And I know the only thing I've heard from anybody at Arsenal about what our ambitions are for the season is from Odegaard, who said that the team's goal is to get into Europe, to qualify for Europe. Champions League is the dream, and they know it'll be difficult. But that the bare minimum, they need to be qualifying for Europe. And so for me, it's kind of like, okay, hold on, you guys. For me, it's kind of like, okay, so can I see us making it into Europe with what we have? Yes, I can. But I guess what my issue is, okay, yeah, I'm trying to get rid of some of these people, guys. I'm trying to get rid of some of these people. Okay, I think I got it. So there's, okay, this is what I wanted to read you guys. So, because I kept asking, I was like, how many games have these guys actually played together? So let me actually pull this up really quick. It says, like, Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka have played 7 games together this season. We won 5 of those games and scored 20 goals. So we know what time period that was. That was basically in December, where we had Xhaka came back against Everton, and then from Southampton on, we played really well until we didn't. And then Arsenal had played over 25 matches this season. And I'm just like, okay, so that is what we're relying upon. And we're really, really good with those two playing in our team. And I believe that. I do think that as much as people don't like Granit Xhaka, I am not a big Granit Xhaka fan. I cannot wait for that guy to leave Arsenal Football Club. But from what we have right now, and the combination of Thomas Partey and Xhaka does give us an Odegaard, I think is a really good midfield. The issue is that we just don't see it enough. I mean, they played 7 games together this season. We played over 25 games this season. So, I mean, that's a fifth, maybe, of the games that we've had. And so our best period of the season in December has come when both of them have played well together. And we've gotten that consistency, and we played our starting 11. But as soon as they got the red card started coming, and we started seeing some different faces in that midfield, our form just dropped. And this is where I worry about the choice that it feels like we're making to not actually improve the squad, especially the midfield. I think that's kind of where I'm like, okay, so if they get another injury, we have 17 games left. Is anybody confident that there's not another red card in Granit Xhaka? There's not another injury in Thomas Partey? And that's what really worries me, because without those two playing well together on a regular basis, we look like a completely different team. With them, we can see us in the top 4. Without them, we're mid-table. And that is a big gap. And that's not to shit on Sambi or Elneny, but the drop-off is so huge. And that's why I wonder, like, how big of a risk are we actually taking here, not actually bringing a midfielder in? It may be a little bit early, but if you bring in Bruno Guimaraes, not only does it put pressure on Thomas Partey and Xhaka to perform, but you have somebody readily available there if something were to happen. We don't have that now. So we're banking our European qualification ambitions on 2 players that have played together 7 out of 26 games this season. That feels like a huge risk to me. And for me, I just don't think that I'm not confident that we make the top 6 with what we have right now, because it's not reliable. And once you scratch beneath that surface, and this also for me includes my thoughts about Arteta and his maybe struggling to manage the gray areas of the squad. Not only do we have a midfield duo that we're heavily reliant upon, but are unreliable really for us. When we try to use the players that are supposed to come in for them, they don't seem to be able to help us churn those results out the way that we feel like they should. And at the beginning of the season, Sambi and Tavares were really doing that. But since they've been dropped out of the squad after Liverpool, they did play against Newcastle, but after that they were pretty much dropped. They haven't looked the same. Pepe hasn't been the same, for a while. And so I wonder about his ability to manage the squad if things don't go our way, and our seemingly almost arrogance to go into the back end of the season after what we just experienced in January, thinking that we'll make it 17 games with that pivot playing every single week. So yeah. Richard Francis says, why haven't we tried Chambers in midfield? I don't know. Can we even afford to experiment right now? We don't even have cup games anymore. So I think even the let's experiment with Chambers is a little bit risky. S says, what was Sambi doing? He had 2 good games this season. When he was playing in midfield, we really weren't losing that much, though. Because I'm trying to think. At the beginning of the season, I thought he was good against Chelsea. And then we went through that weird period of where we were playing okay, but we weren't winning we weren't really winning by large margins, but I thought he was okay then. I really think he was good up until Liverpool. And then he had a man of the match almost performance against Newcastle, and he was out. So I do think Sambi's been okay this season, but he hasn't been the same since then. Let's see. Gary says Chambers has impressed me, to be honest. Ryan says contract Chambers is a backup, like why Nketiah is playing. Yusuf says Chambers, if he's put in the midfield, we could lose all games. There's a point to that. Maybe he's not good in midfield. Tony says, I want to see us move on from the in or out squad management. We need points. That is kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, okay, you have a squad, you have some players that aren't amazing. We've gotten rid of a lot of our squad as well, it's interesting because it's like we've removed players from the squad, but we haven't really replaced. And so we got rid of Pablo Marie. If something happens to Gabriel, I don't even want to think about it. We don't really have a backup right back that we're comfortable with. We got rid of Ainsley Maitland-Niles, but we could go with Cedric, or Chambers. We got rid of Kolasinac. That's fine. It's the Ainsley Maitland-Niles one that really stands out. And so we really don't have a lot. And then when you add Aubameyang to that, if you don't use Pepe and try to make him feel important, we don't really have much coming off of the bench that can help us out. You have ESR. If you have your midfield pivot, you obviously have ESR available to you off the bench. And then you have Pepe. Those are 2 players you got to keep engaged. Both of them, you have to keep them engaged, and you have to care for them and shit and try to make them feel like they're a part of the squad. Chambers is somebody that I'd be like, yo, you're going to be important. You're going to be important, because we don't have enough players, and our starting 11 is not reliable enough for us to be acting like it's okay for these players to be on the outs. Let's see. I saw some other stuff from you guys. Yo-Yo says, people forget Adu, Clichy, Reyes, Parler earned their invincible medals with Vieira, Bergkamp, Cole, Ljungberg injured. Arteta can't rely on plan A. He has to do better. I think it's a valid thing to bring up. And it doesn't mean that I'm saying that Arteta is the worst manager I've ever seen and all of his man management is poor, because I think he manages the players that he really likes very well. The first 12, he manages perfectly. The players that are playing now, plus ESR, I think are good with Arteta. But it's the gray area people that are basically useless, because it's kind of like they don't just use them, like use them more. And you know how you give players confidence is you fucking play them. Like that is the best way to give them confidence. And so I'm looking at games like Brentford and Watford, where I think those would be good opportunities going into more difficult games to give minutes to some of the players, and not all of them. It doesn't have to be a fully rotated squad, but give Sambi some minutes, give Tavares some minutes, give Pepe some minutes, so that they feel important. So when we inevitably have to use them in a difficult game, they are useful to us. It's not that difficult. And like, you can't just rely on the plan A. And then when plan A doesn't work, say, well, I needed better players and we didn't this. The squad is not as good as we probably thought it is, not as good as we think, but it's also not as bad as we think. It could be used better. Let's see. Johnny says, Abba stays and Wilshere goes. You do not write this stuff. Amazon is going to have a field day. Oh, yeah, Wilshere did go off with the team to Dubai. You know, good for him. But I don't know if we're taking the Aubameyang thing too far. We'll see what happens in the next couple of days. But if we have to reintegrate him, I think it's going to be awkward and clunky and not smooth. S says, if it wasn't for ESR's injury, Martinelli would be on the bench. Yeah, I get that. I know you love ESRS. I know you do, but that's how things happen. You get injured and somebody takes advantage and you have a hard time getting back into the squad. But ESR is somebody who, you know, you could start him against Brentford, you know, instead of Martinelli. Give Martinelli some rest. I mean, ESR is a starter. We just only have 11 spots on the pitch, you know, so he's somebody that you need to keep engaged as well. And I was worried that he was getting a little bit of that, not out treatment, but the you're not as important as the others treatment. And it's also kind of like, we don't know what was going on, but the substitution for Smith Rowe out and Nketiah in at the back end of that match against Burnley was very strange. I have to be honest. Silly Billy Killy says, Tavares ain't coming back. He's on Arteta's naughty step until he gets sold for a fiver. Oh man, well, we bought him for a fiver basically. Do you guys think I want to know in the chat box, just let me know yes or no. There's 330 of you guys watching. Make sure you guys get involved. With the squad that we have right now, can we get Europe? Can we finish in the top 6 with what we have now? Let me know in the chat. Mark says, I hope Amazon are filming them in Dubai having a great time. Shit, I hope. I will be skipping this episode of the documentary All or Nothing January transfer window, because I have to be honest, you guys, I don't think we're going to sign anybody. Joshua with the exclamation point says, I hope Pepe cooks when he comes back. Me too. Like, we need players that can score goals. David says, is Arsenal really going to sign any player, as we see what really happens, especially when other clubs are refusing to let them move? I don't know. We'll know in a couple of days whether or not we sell it, whether or not we buy any players. It feels far off, to be honest. Let's see. Oh, you guys are in here. Rida Boy says, we are done. Cairo says no. Dave FC says yeah. S says definitely top 6. Gracious Greek says yes. Unknown user says no. Stefan Weeth says not under Arteta, we cannot. Nat Cross says no. Yes says yes, no injuries, no reds. I mean, but that's the point of it. Do you think that we're going to get out of these 17 matches without a single red or an injury? I'm not sure. Oh, sorry, you guys. My camera just went down. Camera just went down. Joshua says, nah, Conference League at best. James Wolf says, no chance. Arteta needs to go. Ivy says, we can finish top 6, but I don't want top 6, but top 4. Sean says, we'll finish 5th. Miko says, yes, surely. S says, people really think we can't finish top 6. I think with what because I think there's, knock on wood, like, I hope that they don't get any more red cards or injuries, but I feel like I would be being dishonest if I said that I don't think that we'll experience more hiccups. I feel like there's more hiccups in these next 17 matches. There's still COVID, there's still, players coming back from injuries and stuff like that. So I think it's still going to be difficult. Yo-Yo says Arsenal finished 5th and reached Europa League before Arteta. Europa League is his ceiling. Let's see. We Move says, yes, if we can. I wonder. Yeah, so it's mixed. It's mixed. True Gunners TV says, yes, but I think we will finish 7th if we don't sign any players. And that's kind of what I feel. I feel like we're going to finish, we won't meet our targets if we don't sign at least one midfielder, because it's inevitable that Xhaka will do something and they'll give him a red. It's inevitable that Thomas Partey will twist his ankle, and I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying that the first half of the season cannot be ignored. Like, we didn't think that we would experience this amount of unluckiness, and we have. And so I would prefer the club bolster us and make sure that if it does happen, we're prepared rather than hope that it doesn't. But it looks like we're in hope that it doesn't mode rather than let's just make sure that if it does happen, that we're prepared. Blaze says, Jess Wilshere will be our new transfer like Abu Diaby used to be for us back in the day. Oh my gosh. I think Wilshere has some interest from clubs in Greece. And so he's going to Dubai, but he'll probably end up signing for somebody in this January transfer window. But it's been nice to have him around, I guess. Rich Something says, I think it's 50-50. Timmy says, no, top 6. Aston Villa can top us. The teams that are behind us are very, very close. So I hear that. Joshua says, it's a massive piss take if we don't get at least one player not named Matt Turner. They said the goalkeeper is the only signing that they expect to come in before the transfer window ends, so I would just say prepare yourselves, you guys. That's what I really would say, because we've been here before, and the January transfer window has never really been a window where Arsenal do big things except for Aubameyang. So I would just prepare myself a little bit, Let's see. Yo-Yo says Arsenal finished 6 points off 4th last season, so no Europe this season. Not finishing 4th would be sackable offense for Arteta's predecessors. But then again, he should have been sacked last season. I hear where you're at. Yo-Yo. I really do. So I think that we'll see what's going to happen. We will. There's still about 300 of you guys watching. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. I do think that we've went over all the things that I wanted to. We kind of talked about the rumors that were out there. I didn't really touch on Osimhen. I have to be honest. I don't feel like that is, if it becomes more concrete, we'll talk about it maybe tomorrow. But I'm not sure that needs a air right now. But we kind of talked about Adu and the 18th month loan for our tour, and it's been vetoed. Aubameyang, his situation, should we bring him back in? Neves, Douglas Luiz, Saliba, and can we reach our goals with what we have? And this has been an amazing show. I really appreciate you guys for being here. Everybody for that has super chatted in. The Truth Sets Free says, Jess Chambo is really Shamu, the famous killer whale from SeaWorld, San Diego, California. This Shamu, the human legend in the chat, is from New Zealand. So I put the whale in his name since it sounds like the same. So he's Shamu the killer. Yeah, that makes sense now. It makes sense to me now. Thank you so much for all of your super chats and all of your your nice comments and chat and all of that kind of stuff. You guys make my day. You make this so much easier. And I remember the days where I was sitting here hoping that people showed up, and you guys did show up for me. And the regulars, I freaking love it. CC, been seeing you a lot more lately. S, you're always great to have around. Yo-Yo, one of my literal favorites. Blaze, all of you guys. Nashville, thank you guys so much for hopping in. And I'll be back tomorrow. I'm just going to keep them as daily as possible. But make sure you guys share this with a friend, like the video, all those things. Get in the comments at the end, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.